An audio demonstration featuring this Stratocaster and this 1966 Fender Deluxe Reverb will occur spontaneously towards the end of this video presentation. Be prepared for above average yet still mediocre guitar playing. Viewer discretion is advised. The following presentation was recorded at the Menditto Amplification Annex of Maggio Music Center in Brooklyn, New York. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is a 1966 Fender Deluxe Reverb. I have featured this amplifier in several videos published on the Menditto Amplification channel. You can find a link to the playlist in the description below, as well as in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. There has already been several times where I thought that this project was complete, and that I would be able to give this amplifier back to our customer, only to be proven very wrong by new, emerging, and confounding problems. Before I put this amplifier back together, I am going to check the power tube bias one last time. I have already done this once before, so spoiler alert, these RCA 6v6 GTA tubes are kind of old and weak. So this bias trim potentiometer is already set to the minimum setting. But since then, I have changed the 12 AT7 phase splitter tube. I would like to see if this has affected the current draw of the power tubes. You can adjust this bias trim potentiometer with the amplifier fully assembled. There is an access hole on the other side of the chassis that allows you to turn this potentiometer. The reason why I am doing this with the chassis out on the workbench is that we need to check the plate voltage of the power tubes in order to calculate the ideal current draw. There is no external plate voltage test point which would allow you to do this with the amplifier fully assembled. I am going to set this up and show you how this very inexpensive bias test meter works. You put these sockets in line with the power tubes, and then you plug this into the back of the meter here. This is the brand name and model number of this unit. If you are interested, you can find this on Amazon or eBay. Once you calculate the ideal current draw, you just read the bias current in milliamps here, and then you can adjust the bias trim potentiometer until you are pulling the ideal amount of current with the power tubes. We are also going to try out a new set, a match set, of Electro Harmonix 6v6 GT tubes and compare the current draw at the same bias trim potentiometer setting. Okay, we have our bias meter and our voltmeter set up here on the workbench. I have connected the ground from the multimeter to the main ground that the power cord is attached to on the chassis. That should be sufficient. And we are going to use this probe, and we are going to check the plate voltage on both power tubes. So we're going to power it up, and then we kick the standby on. See, right now, without the standby on, you have basically no voltage at the plates. Okay. Okay. Should probably let it run for a little while just to stabilize, but that looks about right. Let's check the other tube. Okay, they are about equal. So right now we're pulling 20 milliamps of current, and this one is, wow, that dropped down to like 16. At this voltage with 6v6 GT tubes, we would like to see it about here at 20 or so. And this one is very weak. let's take a look back at where we were at previously when I measured this last. I'm going to shut this down, and I'm going to put an alligator clip probe and just keep that on one plate since they are about equal. We need to be careful when we are doing this because there is still power there. Okay, let's power back up. Yeah, for some reason this power tube on the left is pulling less current than before changing this phase splitter, phase inverter tube. And normally changing the phase inverter or phase splitter tube, it really should not affect the bias. Sometimes it can affect the plate voltage because if the tube was so worn out, it may have been operating at a different voltage, who knows. But it's always good to check before we put the amplifier back together and give it back to the customer. Just see where we're at and if everything is working properly. The customer wants to keep these old RCA tube power tubes, and I mean, this is kind of weak and it's a little bit imbalanced. That's probably going to have a nice sound to it. A little bit of an imbalance is not always the worst thing in the world. It's probably not going to be the most powerful deluxe reverb out there, but it was rattling all the other guitars on the wall when I was playing before, so it's not weak by any stretch of the imagination. It is working very well. We are going to shut it down, and let's try it with these Electro Harmonix 6v6 tubes. These are nice tubes. They were manufactured before the pandemic in 2019, just before pandemic and all the supply chain issues that we were having. So they did not have to substitute any of the metals or raw materials. There were no crazy stresses on manufacturing at that point. So these are actually really nice tubes. I have an entire box of these matched sets. I probably have at least 50 matched sets left. So let's try these out. Okay, for safety's sake, I switched back to the straight probe with insulation, just exposing a little bit of the tip. We have our Electro Harmonix 6v6 GT tubes installed. Since we are already at the end of the setting here, the minimum setting on the bias trim potentiometer, let's put it in the middle so that we don't have to worry about pulling too much current through these tubes when we turn them on. And then we can try going all the way to the extreme minimum setting like the other tubes were at. Okay. Yeah, these tubes are already pulling a whole lot more current. So it's a good thing that we kind of put some more bias voltage, negative DC, into the control grids, because that is really kind of hot. I don't want to run these tubes for too long like that. So we are not going to even get to the same bias setting as the other tubes, and they are quite weak. It would be a better idea probably to replace these power tubes or convince the customer that that should be the case. I'm going to just recalculate at the plate voltage here. We're now at 432. That should be about the same. $19 or $20 milliamps should still be. So we're going to put the original tubes back in and then talk to the customer and see what they would like to do. But if they want to resell this amplifier, they probably would like to do it with those RCA tubes in here. If they're going to use this, they may want to leave these in and just keep those RCA tubes for, just to have some period correct or possibly original parts with the amplifier. We're going to find out. Okay. So, in conclusion there, the phase splitter inverter tube did not really do anything to change the bias as predicted, and 99% of the time it's not going to. But these old RCA tubes, they're kind of beat. They sound okay. They still are pulling at that. We can adjust them in that they pull almost the right amount of current. So we're going to put them back and just inform the customer that they are kind of weak, and if they would like to change these, I will do that before I put everything back together. So I'm going to talk to the guys at the store and we will find out. I spoke to Mike over at the store. Actually, he's already home having dinner, and I'm still over here in the annex workshop doing my thing. We are going to install this chassis back into the cabinet and then test it out and make sure that there are no more strange noises or rattles or anything. And I am going to put these old RCA 6v6 GTA tubes back into the amplifier and just set the bias trim potentiometer all the way to the minimum setting. And then, if the customer decides that they would like to purchase these nice Electro-Harmonic 6v6 GT tubes, I already know the plate voltage. I already know how many milliamps of current that I would like to pull from those tubes, from both sets of tubes. So I can do everything else externally, and I can adjust this externally. You can see, you can just stick a screwdriver in there and adjust it. So we are going to just put this all back together and keep on moving. I think that this amplifier sounds pretty great now. It's been a long and arduous task to track down all of the problems, but I think we have been successful. There is still a slightly distorted kind of a fizzy sound emanating from the Jensen C12N speaker that was reconed in 1995. The customer will need to live with this for a little while and sort that out and see what they would like to do about that. But otherwise, this amplifier is electronically sound. If you have any questions or comments, thoughts, or ideas, please utilize the comment section below. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. All of those interactions will help us out a great deal. We will have more video presentations for you like this one very soon. I would also just like to thank my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law for sending me this really cool live music sign. See you guys real soon.